Hey guys, this is Murder Bear from Electric Bear, and I'm sitting down with the Supernatural Factory. They're working right now on Phutureprimitive's upcoming tour visuals and stage, Searching for Beauty Part 2. So I guess if you guys want to start off by introducing yourselves.
Sure. I'm Evan Glantz. I'm the visual artist on the project and 3D mapping.
Oliver Delancier, and I'm the owner of the Supernatural Factory, also a visualist, but I don't have time to go on tour.
So do you guys want to go into depth maybe? How did you guys pick up the project? How did you get involved? I guess just give us a quick timeline of how it all started.
Sure. About a week after Burning Man, I got a call from someone within Rain's team about looking for a visual artist to help come in and complete this project before their start of their tour. And then I got connected into talking directly to Rain, and we just kind of went through different options and possibilities of running a projection system on and building a projection system on this kind of short time span. And we clicked right away, kind of got liked the flow back and forth between the way we both worked, but just kind of picked it up and ran with it just a couple weeks before the start of the tour.
Cool. And so I guess did Rain come to you guys personally, or?
He'd actually heard of me through a couple of friends through the West Coast festival scene, but really it started for him with going to someone who he had heard was able to pick up on projects quickly and kind of in lesser terms be someone who's able to step in and save the day on a project. And he heard that I'd done that for a few festivals this season and got put in contact with me, and we hit it off right away.
So this is obviously a new tour, new visuals. What's the vision behind the graphics, the stage, the music, and how do you plan to bind that together?
Rain had a very specific, or has a very specific idea of what he wants to see. It's always really fun working with somebody, especially a musician, who understands the creative process, but mostly somebody who has a vision and a very defined idea of what they want. So he came to us with specific types of content, and we asked him, much like we ask everybody, what kind of look, feel, direction, references can you kind of point to help us build your vision and understand exactly what you want. We've always asked that. We've never had 3 emails structured down with
Deep
every
emails,
detail you can imagine, and it seems like he actually really had fun, thinking about having that openness and what do I actually want, and he really ran down and specific colors, color schemes, specific designs, the combination between mechanic and organic, kind of a duality shift, and then deconstruction, reconstruction were kind of his main direction. But as I say, he really went into detail, and so we collected footage. We created specific 3D dynamic footage for this stage, for the 3-dimensionality of the stage, and then kind of brought back everything else we had. As we said, we had a very, very short turnaround on this. I think it's about a month from when we started to when they left on tour.
3 weeks.
3 weeks from when we started to when they went on tour. So counting all the contractual and kind of getting to know each other, cuts it down very, very short. So we pulled together everything we could to really deliver a complete and very defined project within the parameters we had. And during the tour as well, because of that very short timeline, we only had a chance of setting up the stage and projecting it and shooting a promo video within an hour of the stage being set up. We were shooting the video, so we never had a chance to really develop the content specifically to the stage.
Well, and also develop a flow off of the stage as well. Something that kind of got to build as the tour went.
And a flow with Rain and with his music as well, and really understand where he's going with it, how it works, and so we've been developing things along the tour as well, and kind of fine tuning adding more content in there, redesigning certain sections so that the tour really reaches its level. I think now it's really getting in a good flow, and we're redesigning for the next leg of the tour.
So another major part of the visuals for this tour is doing a video feedback system with Rain's ritual dancer Kalila, and she does tribal, beautiful, ritualistic style dancing in front of the stage, and I set up a video feedback system. So as she dances, it takes an image of her and puts it back up onto the stage, and then inverts and reflects that image back and forth and back and forth, so it creates a tunnel effect out of her movement. Um, so for about 4 or 5 songs show, she'll come out on stage and we'll do this really interactive feedback system that also gets in the hands of the audience, and I do crowd scans and also put it on Rain as well. But it's just other real time videos and effects for the stage as well.
Very cool. And I guess speaking of video feedback and stuff, is there a particular process you guys have followed, like particular software you use to build the content? Is it real time? Is it post production?
So I built a project for Burning Man this year called Between Dimensions. That was a video feedback system. I worked with a team on called the Envelope Engineers, but I was specifically built the video system. It's kind of an interesting rabbit hole you can go down when you're playing with the video feedbacks. But what I like to do is play with the color inversions, as well as you shift the angle and rotationary aspects of the camera facing towards the screen that's displaying itself. It creates different structural patterns and animations that are based on the camera trying to re-understand what it's seeing through the air of seeing itself. So like, as far as like equipment or programs in particular, it's kind of
Theory.
Yeah, it's more of a theory and yeah, exactly. And the process of playing with each time you do it, there's going to be different effects generated by the fact that the camera's going to be on a different angle, as well as a different height from the stage, and distance from the stage as well. So being comfortable and having that flow of each setup creates different effects based on how it's set up and where it's set up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, really, it's more of like the kind of concept, or that kind of like I said before, it's kind of that rabbit hole of being able to not really be required to have any specific type of specific equipment or software, but more the application of using any type of display content or display program and any sort of capture camera to create that feedback system.
We have the same thing kind of with the way we do visuals, the way we create content and everything else. Every tool has its ups, its downs, and anything in between, but in the end you have all kinds of tools at your disposition. It's just about the idea and what you're trying to get out of it in the first place. And we tend to be quite flexible and quite loose with tools. It's just kind of testing them out and see how far we can push them, and if that one doesn't work, then adapt with another one, and kind of,
Yeah, the programs should never be the defining factor of your creativity. It's what you do with your inspiration and whatever tools you can find around you to use to make your idea or your concept come to fruition. The programs and the equipment can be kind of an afterthought, or at least something that's developed along the way.
And being blocked by that seems like a lot of people get stuck with the technical side of things, and technical is never good enough, etc., etc. But they're just the boundary box by which you live in, and you push the boundaries and you'll develop it further. But if you get stuck on technical aspects, I think creativity actually often kind of gets lost as well. It's like it's a tool and like a step to go there, but there are always like 100 ways of doing the same thing. It just depends on how you want to get around it, or what you happen to know, or what you find out. I mean, a lot of it is exploration as well, and like try something out and it doesn't really work this way, shift it over a little bit, and then all of a sudden magic happens, like the Between Dimensions project, where it was a very simple idea in the beginning, and then we started to tweak it, push it, explore with it, and that's when like we opened the door into a really interesting,
a fully interactive fractal generating machine based on cameras and TVs.
Mhm. in which the content that pumped out of it looked very similar to a friend of ours was developing content based on code. And the code-based fractals and the camera-generated fractals looked very
Really-
similar. It's
really
a similar
similar.
kind of idea.
Yeah.
As we said, like the system could generate every fractal system, and it would just do it
By
organically.
by changing the ratio and the rotationary aspects of how the camera was facing towards the screen that was displaying itself, it would create intense weaving, manipulatable fractal patterns that you could shift from one to the other. And being able to, for something like that in particular, having the processing of the actual image being done within the camera and not being done through programs, so it was analog rather than digital, kind of added to some of that. But really, it's like, no painter is going to say that it's this brush that makes me a good painter. It's, the concepts and the ideas that they...
Depends which
they
painter you talk to. But, but mostly it's about actually like seeing what the tools will do. And I think going back to the painter's side, you can have a science and think of what you're going to build, but then once your hand actually starts to explore and once you start to draw and paint, there's a language which like creates itself. And I often say, like, if you start with a painting and you have the idea in mind and you just paint out what's in your minds, there's not much of a process and a very fun adventure along the way. Whereas if you start with a blank canvas and you see what happens and you explore and you figure things out along the way, I think that's really the process is the interesting part, the fun part. And if you're open to seeing what happens as well, you'll discover things. If you're very set in your ways and this is what you want, nothing's going to open up. You're just going to get exactly what you had in mind.
or not get it and then feel like you weren't able to succeed, rather than being comfortable with or being open to however the project ends up unfolding.
And see it when it happens. Be open to like, oh wow, this is amazing, versus like, oh, that's not what I wanted. So yeah.
Go find the magic.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, this is a very unique project, especially the way the content's being created and the turnaround time. Everything about the project is very different from an ordinary stage production project. Do you feel your backgrounds are different?
Specifically in the fact that nothing is ever ordinary, especially when it comes to events and shows. Everyone is a specific new set of problems. You walk into a new venue, and it's a complete mess.
Yeah,
You've got to restructure,
absolutely.
redo everything. So experience in dealing with the completely unexpected every time, and still knowing that no matter what happens, especially when it's really panicking and it looks like it's going to be really tough, that's when you actually come alive. That's when you actually come up with new solutions, new systems, and there's always a solution. So it's always about just, figuring out the best one for the situation. And in the end, like, challenge yourself a little bit as well.
It helps to be clever in those situations. Stop trying to overcomplicate some things.
Or just simplify things,
Yeah.
and just like, let's not make this crazy, let's cut out this problem and just focus on this, and there's always a way. And I think for us as well, that's like that's the mental challenge and the enjoyment we have out of creativity is problem solving. There's always like a whole number of problems, and it's a priority game, and it's also just coming up with that that different solution or that solution that fits.
Cool, and obviously this is a pretty radical solution.
Mhm.
But how would you say that your backgrounds in your respective fields have led you to this point and kind of fused together your experiences, your knowledge into this project?
That's a good question.
Every part of it, somewhere. I mean, we feed off of everything we've done before. Specifically, I've come from like being a painter, a sculptor, an animator, a filmmaker, and all of those things come into place to create. And that's, I think, really why I've found a lot of enjoyment in live projections and all those kind of ideas. It's all the tools and the strength that you can create in a 3D world or a video world, which somebody will enjoy behind a flat screen. Here, it's like they walk into that space. You create an augmented interactive space. So the live experience is very different. And for me specifically, or as a visualist, you get a direct response. If you create something for a TV channel or for online, somebody's going to enjoy it at home in their own space. Here you get to see people interact with it. And so it's much more just a direct feedback for us as well, and to know where we can shift with it.
My background came from the theatrical side. I was a performer, a stage performer for a little bit in New York, and got into doing 3D animation and 3D projection mapping. And for me, where this, like kind of how Oliver said, like everything you do throughout your life culminates to right now. So anything that you come up against, you can pull from any skill or previous experience that you've gone through in order to propel you through whatever issue you're going through at that moment, or whatever obstacle you're facing in that moment. So where that kind of culminated for me with this project is I'm a big part of what I do is the stage construction and kind of stage management at the venues and locations. So as well as operating and running the visual system. Being able to be flexible and building and creating, taking something that's a specific size and making it fit into not always specific size things, or in general making the best out of each situation on the production side, making sure that everything is consistently looking at the highest quality and being taken and received and interacted with at a high quality.
I'm learning that showtime is showtime, and everything has to be set up. When the door's open, the door's open, and no matter what, it has to be perfect and has to be there.
Yeah,
I think that's a good learning of like everything we've done before.
Absolutely.
And something you guys were mentioning earlier when we were talking on the side, you guys have this new space that you got to build the stage in this supernatural factory, kind of, so to speak.
Well, just real quick to clear up, the stage that we're using for this tour is actually built and designed by an artist named Carrie Thompson, that had existed before the concept of this tour, and then was brought in because it matched the vibe and the aesthetic of Phutureprimitive, as well as is a gorgeous piece of really intricately CNC cut and jigsaw and beautiful work of multi-layer wood sculptures. But
the factory is here. We do build stages out of here for other circumstances.
Yes.
And this was specifically created to. So basically, we've opened up the Supernatural Factory. Is a. It's a production. It's a creative agency to a certain extent, and we do offer the wider kind of like spectrum of visual services. And one of which we've specialized in mostly is stage design, building, and content specific to that stage, which can either be 3D dynamics, which can be generated, which can be
MIDI
any kind of tools that we have, even like videography, and we shoot things, slow motion, shoot them, etc., etc. So everything we do in here is kind of linked. The perfect project flow would be an artist walks in and they really need a full rework of their visual branding. We love working with musicians because we're all very passionate about music personally, and also musicians tend to understand the creative process and have an idea, but they can express it in the audio world. They can't necessarily express it in the visual world.
Well, in that sense, we like working with people who have a strong vision for their art or what they're trying to put out there.
And if it's like musicians, I mean, we do everything. So we do musicians, we do startups, we do any kind of like, corporate video, production, short films, music videos, et cetera, et cetera. And going back to like the general flow, we can take them from the beginning and rework their branding, their image, their logo, the way their logo is set up throughout different like platforms. Also work on their website, work on all their photography, their video, music video, sit-down interview videos, and then we build stages, we build the content for the stages, and we also run events. Yeah. So we have a very large 12,000 square foot event space in the back, or we have this 6,000 square foot main factory section where we can do a small, intimate kind of event, or we can really run through their whole setup, get them ready to go on tour, everything there. Their press package is set up, their website is set up, all their social media is set up so that when they leave the door and they have their stage, they have their whole setup gone and ready to go. They can be proud of what they do and make sure that all the right elements are in the right places.
Also,
And then the full show at the end would also be like that kind of live music video / promotional video to just hype people up, get them to the show.
something else we're branching into is running Kickstarters for people that want to build and develop something through a Kickstarter, running the actual process of putting together a good Kickstarter campaign with a good video and a well-explained process of where the money is going to be allocated to. Make sure everything is runs smoothly.
And also, the really important part of all of these elements is really knowing what to do with your content once you have it. You can have really good, really nice content. It can be really intricate content, and if nobody sees it, you just kind of wasted your time. So we also help to maintain and manage campaigns, and it can be a Kickstarter campaign, or it can be a new campaign just to get attention for a new show, a new album, a new product, anything. And that's really our fine-tuning what the message is, and then also making sure that it reaches the right ears and the right eyes so that the right people hear about it. And that's something that I learned heavily at Billboard, and knowing that in the beginning we started with interviews with 50 Cent, Jack Black, Michel Gondry. We sat down with anybody, had really interesting interviews, and nobody ever watched them because they never knew that we had that type of content. So we had to go from just being unknown to putting the content in the laps of the people who would be interested in it. And we went from 100 hits to, I believe, it's one of the top YouTube viewed, and we're like 500 million views, and on something which is very, very cost effective, but also very effective when it comes to message. And I'd say also to keep in mind, like, creating messages that people want to hear. It's always a good start. If you actually deliver things that people want, they'll be interested. If you try and force feed them something they're not interested in, you're going to get more resistance. So generally for us, it's working on the side that content is contagious. Whatever energy you put into content, if you really enjoy what you're doing while you're doing it, the person who watches it will enjoy what you're doing. It's kind of a simple process. If it's really painful and you hate what you're doing, most likely that's going to be embedded in the content, and the people who watch it will get that feeling from it. So I think for us, our main, making sure we're on the right track, it's if we're happy doing what we're doing, and if we're really passionate about what we do, we'll do a good job of it, or a great job of it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And when people go to see the Phutureprimitive live show, what would you like them to take away from that experience? Like what you guys have added to the experience and the music he produces?
It's the full experience that we're really pushing on, and the fact that what you see is what you hear, that your eyes and your ears are being fed. I think the music industry is very much focused on music. It is the music industry, but the fact that live shows have changed, and they used to be more of a show, and now we're kind of bringing back that full experience and kind of an immersive experience. It's a visceral experience as well. It's not just an intellectual one. So especially on something like the Phutureprimitive tour, it's more adding to the look and the feel and the, why did you get off your couch and go to the show in the first place? You want a full experience.
So a big part of the Phutureprimitive tour as well is this game that they play with the audience, which is called Dance Out Your Demons, where you take a piece of red duct tape, you write an intention that you either want to bring in or something that you want to get out, and you write it down and you stick it on the bottom of your foot, and then you go out on the dance floor, and as the community or as the group together, you come in to the dance floor with an intention that you're setting, and together we all go through the process of moving through those intentions. A part of what we're doing with the video side to help add to that is create that environment that draws people in to the crowd, as well as puts them in this space where they feel open and free to have interaction with the people around them, as well as with the music, as well as with the visuals, and like feel open to go through their intention that they want to dance in or dance out, as well as be a part of this very specific and very open environment and community that comes together for these shows.
And in a way, like what we're doing is transporting people as well. We want to transport them from their everyday situation, and with visuals and with sound, you can push certain emotional responses through light, through certain frequencies. You can really push that. And also with the visual system and an architectural visual system, you're not in a club with black walls around you and it's kind of dingy and it's dirty. You bring them into another world, which is the world of imagination, the world of like exploration, and in that world they can kind of free themselves from their everyday while dancing and kicking out their demons as well. And it kind of gives them a much more fulfilling experience in the end.
So the phrase I like to use for that is one that comes from my theater background. It's called the suspension of disbelief. It's basically that idea in theater that you are sitting in a room with chairs with other people, but you are so involved and brought into this show that's happening in front of you that the people on stage, that is reality. Mm-hmm. And being able to bring that into the event world where we're going into these kind of dark clubs and venues that are in the middle of downtown, Pittsburgh or whatever, and bring them to this Aztec temple with this beautiful ritual dancer and feel like they're transported to a completely different reality and are able to escape the fact that they are, in a club, in a city, somewhere in America, and feel like they're at a futuristic experience at an Aztec temple.
Another place in time, and another planet, or another world. Yeah. And what we do as well is like pushing that disbelief side is visually. We have a 3D architectural model, which is made out of wood. It's a real physical object. But with light and with image, we can distort, explode, recreate, deconstruct, and reconstruct this structure. And it tricks the eye to the point where you're not really sure where reality finishes and where imagination starts. And that's the beauty of visual kind of like pushes or like projection mapping, is that you can really transform a space, and full immersion is like the extreme example of that. You can break away the walls and put somebody on a tropical island. You can really transport them, and with the whole community group, with the music and with the video, it gives you that complete shift, which brings you out of your own body and into another world. And this is a world where, for our own sake and for our own fun, we have full control of. As we say, we can break down buildings and we can restructure things, give birth, so it is, it's entertaining, it's fun. And to see as well, how people react to it as well, if halfway through this track, this Aztec temple explodes and comes back into itself, how do people react to that? And, where did that wooden structure shift? Did it move, or am I still looking at the same thing? So in the end, it's all illusion. It's kind of a little game with magic.
Yeah, one of my on that kind of thing, one of my favorite comments I got on the tour so far, there was a girl afterwards who walked up and she's like, "Oh, it's made out of wood. I thought it was a video screen."
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up? Possibly about the stage, what you'd like people to take away when they come and look at your work?
No, we'd say
Anything
go
else?
to the show and enjoy it, let us know as well if you have any ideas, suggestions, or, bigger, crazier dreams. We're always open as well. If anybody wants to hit us up with something they've always dreamt of doing, which would be amazing, and just, see if we can do it. We're always up for a challenge, and any kind of new ideas, and crazier the better, I think is always fun. Either for this stage or for any other stage, or if they have a project that they've always wanted to do, we're always open up for new challenges, new ideas, new directions.
So something for me that I really would love for people to take away from a show like this one is that that everyone deserves to have come and have a good time and really enjoy yourself, but also to kind of to hold a standard of quality of production that we're really living in a day of age and like a technology age where every project should have a really high production value and be something that can transform you to another space. So like something that I always say to people after the show is just thank them for coming and expecting and being a part of putting on higher quality and higher level shows for, you know, not super high ticket prices, for not, you know, you don't have to go to the Super Bowl to see a high production value. You can have people with strong intentions and with a clear vision and a little bit of technology and put on a really high quality show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say that's Rain's like really strong like skill is like, you know, having a really strong direction that he's going in, but he really has a vision, and it makes it really strong to work with somebody with a vision like that, to be able to develop something which as a whole is really effective.
And then for us to have the opportunity to bring these people's visions and dreams to fruition and have like to go through that process of taking someone's crazy, like, oh, this could never happen, but it'd be really
that seems
cool.
Impossible. We're like, that's a great
and
starting
that's
point.
an awesome way to
this.
get this whole project started. Is that like the crazier the better.
Yeah.
Like challenge us.
Seemingly impossible. I think that's a good start for us to like push. And as well, like as we said, like we're always interested to see how far we can go as well. You know, we have a certain breadth of experience. We've gone through certain things, but if we're doing the same thing over and over, it's not interesting. If you come to us with something which is, you know, seems impossible, with a little bit of light, a little bit of imagination, and like, you know, a few skills and a few tools, we can make the impossible possible. So the further we can push that, and the further we can push that borderline in between reality and fiction, and kind of augmenting reality, you know, the more entertaining it is for us. We love what we do, you know, so in a way, like, you know, the further we can push that, the happier we'll be. And then going back to what we said before, the happier we are doing it, the happier you'll be seeing it.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, guys. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with us. And everyone listening at home, be sure to check out Phutureprimitive when he goes on tour with this awesome new stage.
We'll be doing the West Coast this next 2 months.
Awesome. Catch you guys next time.